Hi fans, please like our video and subscribe to the RotoWire channel. Then please go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.
Hey everybody, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Today is November 23rd, Monday. It's Monday after week 11, Chris, and terrible week, obviously, for me as a Bengals fan. We'll start there. Brutal injury. We talked about this all year. You keep getting big hits to your quarterback, your prize quarterback. It's going to get hurt. And unfortunately, it was worst case scenario. His knee got wrecked, and it was a clean hit. It wasn't like a dirty play or anything, but his left knee is toast now. We'll see him next year in the case of Joe Burrow, and I don't know. I'm really bummed out about this one.
Yeah, it sucks, man. And it may not be week one.
Right.
It's pretty far into the season. If there's other ligament damage with the ACL, could be week 6. It could be halfway through next year. Imagine like him being undraftable next August, when with T. Higgins and Boyd and Mixon again, maybe, this would be actually something that could be a huge offensive situation. But it just goes to show, like, you need an offensive line. You can't do that. You can't just have the quarterback. Andrew Luck dealt with this. By the time they got it right with the offensive line, he was already too beat up to really have a career. And so, you hope Burrow doesn't go down that road, but this is worse than Luck. Luck played a few years, before he started to really break down. He broke down right away. And the thing about Burrow and Luck, which is similar, is that both are kind of fearless. Like, Burrow was getting his ass kicked every week, but he wasn't really – you didn't see him get the happy feet. You didn't see him really get cowed by it. He would just be like, yeah, whatever, I'd get up after a hit. And so he's one of those guys that, almost like the team has to protect, because he's not going to slide and get out. He's going to stay with it. So horrible luck and kind of malpractice by the Bengals too.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about how in the NFL you almost need a quarterback with some mobility, but the trade-off of mobility is you get hit a lot more. And like the fourth down play earlier, and you wrote about that in your observations article. It's like, yeah, more of that is going to be a problem. And unfortunately, that problem came a quarter later. But they were ahead. They were rallied. Burrow had like 190 passing yards in the first half. They were moving the ball against a tough pass defense, but he was getting beat up. And, when he comes back, is he going to be that mobile anymore? That's the thing. I worry about that quite a bit. It's kind of like Carson Wentz.
Yeah, Wentz is mobile still a little bit, but Wentz, we can talk about him, but he's like trough Brett Favre. It's all guts, no skills. But, he'll probably will be at his age. He'll probably come back still pretty mobile. It's just that I don't like – we'll see how bad the rest of the damage is, but if it's just an ACL, they'll repair it, it'll heal. He'll be like – he's pretty old, Burrow. Someone's joking about it, like he's already like 30. But, it'll heal, and – it's the chronic beatings, like the hip injuries and the back injuries and the soft tissue injuries that make these guys that were once quick and had a quick first step slow.
Yeah.
It's the Steve McNairs. Cam Newton's probably not as fast as he once was. The guy who just got like beat up over time. Burrow has been beat up, but it's only been 10 games, and the ACL, as bad as it is, I don't think it's going to make him a statue next year.
Yeah, that's right. But we'll see when he's ready and see what he's like, and what the Bengals have done in the offseason too. They spent money this past offseason, and almost uniformly it hasn't paid off. Trey Wayne still hasn't played a game. He was their cover corner that they signed.
DJ Reader.
Yeah, he's out. Mackenzie Alexander's missed games.
They signed Mixon.
Yep, that's right.
It's all waste of money.
Yeah, Jonah Williams, their first-round pick last year, has struggled and has been hurt this year after not playing it down last year. It's some of this is bad luck. Some of this, though, it's just bad decisions too. And the Bengals have had so little return from their first round picks over the years. John Ross
What
hasn't
about
done anything as a pro.
what about Zach Taylor and the GM? Why don't they just get rid of those guys, start over again? I mean, does this seem like a winning crew to you?
It's hard to say with Taylor. I want to give him more time. I think I think sometimes you need to give it a little bit of time.
It's been 2 years.
Mistakes, but
he was almost winless last year. It's been 2 years. Why not put in 2 tight ends and 5 offensive linemen on every play until Burrow gets enough protection? What's the priority here? Like what are they doing?
Yeah.
Why not? Why are you putting them out there getting crushed every game? You're playing the football team. They have one of the best pass rushers in the league. Shouldn't they be going double tight end, playing it conservative? Oh wait, the offense isn't that good. They're handing off a lot. They're not. Yeah, because we're not going to the playoffs, so our priority is to keep our star quarterback, safe, develop him for this year, and then when we get a better offensive line, we'll start running a real offense next year. I mean, these guys just like, oh, it's bad luck. It's too bad. This guy's getting crushed every play, so that someone like me or you can just watch and be like, yeah, he takes more hits than anybody. Of course, it's a ticking time bomb. Of course, you're taking hits. It's just a matter of time before you're out for the year and have real damage.
Yeah, and you're in the AFC North. You're not. There's no backdoor chance of the playoffs. There's nothing. Yes, there's development, and that does have value. But when
still develop
like the Steelers game last week. Why he was in? I know he was like, I'm no quitter and all that. Well, sometimes the coach has to be the adult in the room. Say, okay, this is a blowout. Let's get him out of here.
Well, leave him in, but hand off and get the ball out quick. I mean, change the offense around. I mean, if you can't protect him, change the offense so that you're still developing him. It's not the offense you'd run if you're trying to optimally score points.
Yeah.
It's not the Super Bowl where you're going to take some chances. This is like total developmental time, and why take any chances?
Yeah.
I mean, you're always taking some chances by having him out there, but why not, 2 tight ends and quick release patterns and things like how to preserve himself? Clearly the guy needed to learn how to preserve himself. He's not Russell Wilson, who knows exactly when to slide, although Russell Wilson got beat up for a couple of weeks too. But he's not going to take care of himself. You got to design an offense at this point that is, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like 101, coaching 101. Like, all right, we're out of the playoffs. We're playing the football team. We're playing the Steelers. These are teams that, we're going to want to just design the offense to maximize protection first, and then, if it's going well, we can experiment a little bit. But I would can those guys. And then all the failures of all these picks. I mean, Burrow was a no-brainer pick. There's no skill in drafting him.
Yeah.
I guess T. Higgins was a good pick. But all these failed signings and picks just seems like just get rid of this crew. I don't see Zach Taylor blowing up somewhere else.
They got a little unlucky. Waynes has been, all these guys have gotten hurt. And the thing is, that's the first time they've ever spent anything in free agency. That's kind of like, so I can't really throw them under the bus for the signings. Hashtag they tried.
Fine.
But
that's fine. But I mean, I don't know. It just seems like this. It doesn't seem like this is, it's like the Giants had Shermer and gave him a chance, and I thought he was going to be good, and he kind of sucks. When they fired him, I was like, yeah, good riddance. Like, he had a couple of years. He didn't develop anybody. He didn't do anything.
It's kind of like quarterbacks for you. If they don't do it the first couple of years, move on. Huh?
You got to move on quick. I mean, what are you doing with Zach Taylor for 2 years is enough time for a coach, and then he gets the quarterback hurt. Forget it.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, maybe that's the right play there. Meanwhile, the football team got to 3 wins now. The Giants have 3 wins. The Cowboys have 3 wins. The Eagles have 3 wins and a tie against my Bengals. We could have a 5-win division winner. I don't think we will, but it's possible still.
Yeah, I think 6.5 is probably the over/under. 6.5. It'll be hard to get to 7 for any of these teams.
Yeah,
6 probably. I think probably 6.
But those are out of division wins for both Washington and Dallas this week. Cowboys look like a football team. They look normal this week. Their defense was pretty bad in the second half. They came up big at the very end, but still, first half they played pretty good defense. They're moving the ball. Andy Dalton's not great, but he looked like a real quarterback.
Yeah, they were fine. CeeDee Lamb made an amazing catch on the touchdown, and then Thielen made an even better catch on their touchdown. But it was cool. The Vikings are so funny because they have 3 guys. They have Thielen, Jefferson, and Cook, and that is it. Yeah. Nobody else gets anything. And so those 3 guys are like, Thielen's top 7 receiver, top 5 receiver. Cook is number one probably now, with Kamara dealing with Tim Tebow, quarterback. And then you got Jefferson, who's a top 20 receiver. Like, the three of those guys are just it's bananas every week.
Yeah, every once in a while you get a little tight ends working there. Rudolph
Barely,
had a
though.
game against the Bears on Monday night. Irv Smith had a couple touchdowns in another game, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it is a very narrow tree. That's nice. It's an investable. It's investable. It's kind of funny that way. But a couple of weeks ago, people were like, I don't know what to do about Thielen and Jefferson, because they had those two huge running games where all they did was run the ball basically, and they got like 50 yards each between the wide receivers. But this is more normal for Minnesota. Their defense isn't very good. They're going to have to throw the ball at times.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, it's always the second half. They never want to.
Yeah.
And then the games where Cousins and Thielen go off, it's because like they're behind like this game and they just throw all over the place. And often it's a bad defense like Dallas and they light it up. But
yeah. I always hate, it's great for the teams, but I always hate when you get these games and you've got fantasy going on. Yeah, the offenses move the ball, but they each took like 8-minute drives, and all of a sudden you want more possessions when you've got a lot of these fantasy guys, unless you have the running backs. If you have the running backs, you're fine. But when you got the wide receivers or quarterbacks, you're like, come on, let's throw the ball more. Let's not grind clock. Let's snap the ball already, for the love of goodness. Yeah, let's go.
yeah, you want a lot of points per minute. You don't want slow developing. And it's funny, the Raiders Chiefs was like that.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. It was like they're just each going for like 7 minutes. I mean, they scored plenty of points, but man, that was frustrating. I mean, I'm glad that the Raiders covered, because that was all the only dog I really had in the fight, but they should have won that game. I mean, it was that Witten penalty was bad because it made them have to score. It made them have to score more. They had to worry about the touchdown when Witten had that 5-yard penalty more than the clock, because you're on the 6. There's no guarantee you're going to score. When they had it on the 1, they could have just almost better to like just purposely get it to the 1-inch line and just go for it on 4th down, and just leave Mahomes with almost nothing, rather than an hour on the 6. We can't just. I would have still run it probably, but it just made it so that like they had to just score and then leave whatever time was left, and then you knew Mahomes was going to beat them. It was just obvious.
You almost needed to score in a way quicker, because you knew Mahomes was going to beat him. You want more time with the ball later. I mean,
but the Chiefs were going to be able to control how much time was left, on their drive. So it was just the timing thing. The Raiders are good. They're a good team.
They're legit. They're legit. I was frustrated because I have Josh Jacobs everywhere. And I'm going to get that touchdown if Witten doesn't have that penalty.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is, too, like, why are you using cadence at the goal line anyhow? I mean, you're going to gain another inch? I mean, it was really that close.
Just habit. Yeah, it is annoying. Dalton had a good idea, his first and only in his life on the podcast. He said, like, let's say, at least for the offense, you're backed up on your half-yard line and you commit a false start, or holding or whatever. Well, I mean, it's like a quarter of a yard penalty. But why shouldn't they just move the first down marker 5 or 10 yards further away?
I like that.
Because like, it makes no sense. It's like, well, yeah, you can't go backwards, but why would it be 1st and 20 if you're at midfield, but it's only 1st and 10 and a quarter if you're at your goal line? Just make it 1st and 20. Just put the first. It's so easy. But they act, there's nothing we can do. We're backed up. No, there's something you could totally do to enforce the penalty, because it encourages just sort of this like reckless, you can do whatever you want. But the same thing happened where I think the Chiefs committed a penalty first, but it was like barely inches, and it was like a personal foul or something, and yet it's nothing. And then a little false start moves you back 5 yards. Yeah. You should get credit or something. You should have like a credit. No, we've got a credit. Sorry, we'll use our credit. That penalty that you got nothing on, we'll just not take our penalty. It doesn't like
credit.
It's so stupid. You should have like a credit. It doesn't.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a garbage call too, though. You heard, because the microphones were so good. You heard Matthew go, "For what?" And then the announcers go,
right.
"Yeah, what was that for?" They showed a little replay, because you watched the condensed version, obviously. So
yeah, I did. I didn't see what he did.
They were like, "What was the foul here? We don't know what it was."
Well, what was the one? Because again, I was watching the condensed version. I'm 4th and 1, right at the goal line. They were going to go for it. And then they got a sideline taunting penalty, and then they were like the 15.
I guess like it was just as dumb. It's like the coaches have to stay in a certain area, and they were like multiple coaches well past that box.
Well, why? What's the purpose of that?
I guess that coach just coaches have to stay between the 20s or whatever, and they had multiple ones like over that line or whatever, and so that's a foul. It's like the illegal shifts and not that necessarily, but like we didn't have them covered up on this side and those sort of things. There's a reason for it. No one got back to me as far as I know about, or at least they didn't get back to me. They might have gotten back to you. Like, what's the rationale for that line? The covered up on the end rule. There is that this.
I think that might be that you could they wouldn't know their player was there. They hide a small guy behind a big guy, and then all of a sudden he sprints out. He's wide open. Hiding a player.
But it's like if a guy's offset on the line of scrimmage. That's what I mean by covered up.
What does it mean?
When you got one guy on the outside and he's like a step behind the line of scrimmage instead of on the line of scrimmage.
Oh, I see. Oh, I think you need 7 guys on the line or something like that. Oh, I don't know. But I think you need your 5 linemen and then 2 other guys at the line. I think so. I might be wrong about that. Yeah. But you need 7 guys at the line of scrimmage for some reason. Maybe because one guy can go in motion if there's enough, I guess. I'm not really sure what. There's obviously it's we talked about this last week, or maybe on the show, but it might be the same kind of thing like offsides and hockey or soccer where it's there'd be goal hanging if you didn't have this, and we don't want goal hanging. We want legit fast breaks. So there's something that teams would do if they didn't have to worry about this, and I'm not sure what that is in football,
right?
But it's probably got a purpose like that.
It probably does. Moving on other injuries I want to talk about. Julio had the hamstring injury and missed a lot of the second half. That's a big. That offense. You have Julio, it functions. You don't have Julio, it doesn't function. Period. A lot of times you say you got 2 big good receivers, Julio and Ridley. Oh, that means more targets for Ridley. Oh, it helps. No, it doesn't though. I think in this case at least we can see that Ridley needs the number 2 corner. He can't deal with being bracketed. He can't deal with that. Julio is a difference maker, and you could see it. Ryan got sacked 8 times too, but I think some of that was because they could turn the dogs loose. Julio couldn't hurt them.
Yeah, Julio Jones is one of the top 5 receivers of all time. I mean, you can argue who the 4 are, but he's one of the top 5 receivers of all time. So it's not implausible that someone like Ridley, who's a good receiver, first-round pick, who's produced ever since he got in the league, it's not the same. He's a good player. Maybe, when Julio retires next year or 2 or 3, we'll see Ridley emerge as that guy. He might. But for now, it looks that way. But, yeah, you're right. But the other thing is the pass rush, as you mentioned, was so fierce that it might have just been hard to get going, period. I mean, it was like, DK Metcalf got shut down by Jalen Ramsey, but same time, Russell Wilson was under assault, so he couldn't really even let the play develop long enough, and that might have also happened to Ridley to an extent.
Yeah, I think that's possible. So, and Ryan, I saw this one breakdown. I think it was Matt Waldman was doing on Twitter, talking about how Ryan just didn't have that sense of urgency to get rid of the ball at times. Sometimes it's just the play's not open. Get rid of it. Don't take the sack.
Right.
And he didn't do that. Saints defense won people leagues yesterday because of that, though. Meanwhile, Taysom Hill on the other side, he wasn't bad. I mean, he's not throwing it to Kamara. That's a concern. But he was throwing a lot to Michael Thomas. It saved Michael Thomas's day at least. Yeah,
I mean, that's what Michael Thomas needed, is like a real QB with some skill. And now that they got rid of that pretender and they got the second coming of Tebow, he's set. I don't know. I think that what really, I think the deal is that Kamara, Breeze is captain check down, and running QBs don't check down. When things break down, they run, they scramble. Yeah. Now, I do think next week there'll be some designed short throws to Kamara in the offense, like that he'll get 4 catches just from that. But his value takes a legitimate hit because Breeze would just always know where Kamara was. Even if he were blocking, he'll just peel out and be that outlet. And Breeze knows, exactly how to put it, lead him, make it easy for him. And it's just when things break down, he's taken off. So yeah, this seriously compromises his value. Like Dalvin Cook is better than him now. I think, Henry and Kamara, it's 50-50. I think now you have some competition at the top where Kamara was the easy number 1 with Breeze. It changes things.
Yeah. Keep in mind, Kamara was also hurt during the week too. He missed one practice, limited another one. I mean, that's always something to kind of watch for too. He was
But
off the injury
he
list
got
by
13
the end
carries.
of the week.
You got 13 carries.
Yeah,
He,
got the touchdown at least. But yeah, and also Taysom Hill's going to hurt the backs there in the goal line. It's kind of like the Baltimore running backs. Sometimes
really
Ingram had a ton of touchdowns last year, so it doesn't always work that way. But you can lose a lot of rushing touchdowns. It happens with the Pats usually too, or wherever Cam's at too.
Yeah, I know that's true. I'm a little annoyed because in my NFFC prime time, I'm facing the guy in first place, and a lot of bad things. I have Metcalf and Kamara, and I went to put in for Alex Smith. I bid $2. My own fault that I'm low on fab. This guy went 27, and he did not start Hill. He had someone else good. I can't remember who, Kyler Murray or somebody starting.
So
But
he's
he
just
obviously
doing it to
bid on
block.
Hill. Perhaps, or maybe he thought just in case Murray gets hurt, he's gonna have. But it seems a little far fetched that because he knew all I had was Baker Mayfield, and I got beat for Andy Dalton by a couple bucks. So I ended up picking up Alex Smith, starting him, got 10 points.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill got 27, so that cost me 17 points. I'm up 6, and I've got Antonio Brown. He's got Ronald Jones and the Tampa kicker. So it's close. It's about 50-50. He might be a slight favorite, but it's pretty close. But I should have smashed, basically. And I had the Saints defense, but he had the Browns defense who had 21 or something crazy like that. So I'm a little annoyed, and I'm hoping I win it. But basically, yeah, I got blocked. I was the second high bid. On the Friday bid. Obviously, this is the second bidding, too. This isn't just, this is like somebody going out to get Hill. And I mean, it was smart by him because he knew he could see if he was paying attention that my quarterbacks were, I didn't want to start Mayfield, so I had to pick someone up. I have Danny Dimes, but he's on bye.
Yeah. And you never know. I mean, if Hill shows that he's could do this on a weekly basis, he gets another Atlanta game in 2 weeks. He gets Denver this upcoming week. These are viable games, although Denver really showed up this week.
Well, he has Kyler Murray, so he's definitely not using
Right.
Hill ever unless Murray gets hurt.
But yeah, it could have been very useful for you for the upcoming weeks too. I mean,
totally.
You don't really want to use Mayfield ever. I mean,
or Alex Smith, but there's literally the only other guy there.
Yeah.
And I was like, against the Bengals, I was like, I'll take Alex Smith. But yeah, I mean, I was the correct call. I got 2 points extra for using Alex Smith, but it was, it was bad choices for both.
Exactly. Before we move on, a quick note from our friends at PropSwap. Smart sports bettors always know where to find the best odds before placing a bet, and that's why smart bettors use PropSwap. You can always find the best odds on PropSwap because you're buying directly from other bettors like yourself. See a ticket you like but think the price is too high? Submit a bid for a price you think is fair, then buy it. PropSwap sellers are always willing to negotiate. We all know bookies never will. And for a limited time, our listeners can get up to $500 in bonus cash. Just use the promo code ROTO500. That's promo code ROTO500, and PropSwap will match your first deposit up to $500. Become a smarter sports bettor today. Go to PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app. One other injury note, Rex Burkhead out for the season now for the Pats. It's not directly hurts things, but what I think it does is it actually gives James White a little bit of value. And I don't think you could have used White prior to this, but now he's the pass catching back for the Pats. I think Harris is pretty much ensconced as the runner between the tackles, and Cam's not running as much either. So I think that actually might have some interest there.
Cam's not running at all, really,
Yeah.
and that's been weird. Ever since COVID. It's weird. I don't know. I doubt it's because of COVID, but for whatever reason, he's not running, and it's changed. He's not really usable. He had a good game. He actually played well. I watched a lot of that game. The story there was the Patriots just did not tackle very well, and B have no pass rush at all. It's like Watson just carved him up because he was just standing there. Yeah. I was just very frustrating. I had
like the Jets game on Monday night 2 weeks ago. I mean, we talked about this. I wasn't convinced that the Pats defense was fixed. They got one sack on Flacco in the fourth quarter and one miracle interception where he just did a heat check throw. I mean, they did nothing against him. And this game was very similar. And I was reading they didn't blitz that much. They didn't send the guys after.
Watson. They didn't blitz. And it's like I know Watson's kind of a smart quarterback and he can deal with the blitz, but it's like you got to blitz if you can't obviously you'd rather get home with 4. With your base rush.
Wouldn't
That's
we all
ideal.
like that? Yes.
Right, of course. But if you can't, then you've got to mix it up so that like suddenly a corner comes out of nowhere and takes out your quarterback. You can't do it every time because they'll adjust, but just unpredictably blitz, and they never adjusted. So what's the alternative? You just sit there and let them pick you apart and lose the game. I mean, at some point you got to take a chance, and it was really bad. I mean, the Patriots are 4-5 now; they're 4-6. They're almost out of it. It just seemed like, just what are you worried about? Just take a chance. There, he's carving you up, and that was the story of the game. 0 pass rush. I think their secondary actually played decently. It was just that you can't let Watson stand back there for 5 seconds every single snap.
Right. And, some of this is personnel. They had so many guys opt out. And, that's kind of, some of that's coming to roost. And, they did a good job against Baltimore, but that was also in a monsoon. And it's also Baltimore, who's got offensive line problems out the wazoo.
Huge problems. They have huge problems. Baltimore, I watched that game, a lot of it. And first of all, it was awesome. A.J. Brown is awesome. That go-ahead touchdown was just like, and then they have Derrick Henry that finishes in overtime, and you're like, they have 2 guys. Nobody in the history of the NFL has had 2 more punishing key skill guys. And then Corey Davis is having kind of a little breakout, and Jonnu Smith is good, and Tannehill is a good athlete too. And so this is just a good offense. It's just a really good offense. The play calling is good. It's a sharp offense. The defense is very mediocre. And so they have their flaws. Their special teams are horrible. But this team has ceiling. And I was trying to say about the Colts game, like, okay, the Colts grounded out going on 4th down against the Titans and beat them. But the Titans are the team that could do damage in the playoffs. I don't think the Colts can. I don't think Rivers is good enough. He almost made a horrible throw. He played pretty well. The offense is set up pretty well. Defense is pretty good. But I just don't see a ceiling for them the way, I see it for the Titans.
Yeah, I see what your point is there for sure. The Titans worry me, though, too, because, they did get manhandled by the Colts in the second half there. They were on the field forever. That defense, to me, it's just meh. And I think, Lamar's struggles, let's face it, Hollywood Brown's become Lancaster Brown. It's not just like a lesser-known suburb. He's like out in the exurbs. He's nowhere close to Hollywood now. It's just he had a bad drop in the first quarter. He had a near catch in the second quarter in the end zone where okay, that could have, some receivers come up with that. That one got broken up though. The knocks on him about his size have come to roost. He's just tiny. He doesn't fight for the ball. They can't throw it they can't throw an up for the grabs ball because he's not going to get it. And so you lose targets. Yeah,
and plus you need offensive line play too for someone like him. You need to get him down the field and throw it behind the defense, and that takes time to develop. And Jackson is so herky-jerky. He gets the ball. It's like he can throw a nice deep ball actually, but it's just like read, react, run. He's got to have time, and he doesn't have as much time. Yeah. The offensive line, like you said, isn't as good. We've been talking about this all season. They're not getting the chunk plays. They had 2 big plays to Andrews, but they're just not getting long plays. And that's just, it's a problem. And I don't see it getting fixed anytime soon. Yeah, Dobbins emerged from the committee, and he looked pretty good. So that's one thing. I think he's going to get most of the carries. You can't trust him.
He did that against the Steelers 4 weeks ago, and then he kind of disappeared 2 weeks in a row after that. He should. Ingram got like 6 snaps. So maybe they realized finally, okay, stop messing around with Mark Ingram. Okay, he's back, but who cares? Just use Dobbins.
Yeah, I think they're starting to realize it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if it actually happens. Yeah. But it's time. It's deep enough into the season. It's pretty interesting. When the Ravens played the Chiefs in Baltimore was like 4-point favorites. Everyone had them as bigger than just the home field advantage.
Than the Chiefs. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's on such a small sample. It was last year's sample also, the priors. But still, it's just so interesting how easily. And so, we were ranking QBs. Jackson and Mahomes were in 1-2. And I had Mahomes ahead of him. And I had regressed Jackson a decent amount, not nearly to where he is now. I should have regressed it more, obviously. But it's like Mahomes' game doesn't regress. Mahomes is Mahomes. Like, he's the guy. Mm-hmm. But Jackson was, what is he really? And it's so crazy. This guy's the MVP. And, if they had a viable backup, he could lose his job. That's how poorly he's playing. If they had somebody, he could. No, they wouldn't. He won MVP. But that's how drastic this is. He's like a borderline fantasy QB.
Some of it's on Jackson.
Real life QB.
A lot of that's the offensive line too, though. And I think it shows. You have one key guy retire. You have another guy that's out for the season, and the Jenga puzzle comes apart. We've used that analogy a lot of times. Mahomes is Mike Trout to me, though. Every year he's going to be good. Someone might have a better season, and so okay, you can make the case for him not being the MVP. But you know in your heart of hearts, he's 1A. He's the number one.
He and Russell Wilson. There's two players. Yeah. There's two guys in the league, I think, that are just different than the other guys.
So what does this mean for Kyler Murray next year? How much are you gonna regress him?
You got to regress him because he's having like Jackson did, the greatest fantasy quarterback season of all time. A lot. I regressed Jackson a lot. I gave him 26 touchdown passes. It wasn't enough. He had 35 last year in 15 games, 36 in 15 games. I gave him 26, and it wasn't enough. Although he may end up at 23 or something by the end of the year. But just the whole package. He'll be regressed a decent amount, but he's still going to be like a second or third round pick because those skills. I think Murray's in between Mahomes and Jackson. Jackson was he threw a lot of touchdown passes, but he didn't have a lot of passing yards, and he didn't have a lot of attempts. And I think a lot of his value was running. So much of his value was being a runner. And I don't know that even last year, even though because his running was something they had to respect so much and honor, he still he still didn't. It made it easier for him to be a passer, but I don't think it really proved that he was a real NFL level passer. Whereas I think Murray has passed that threshold already. That Murray's already a passer, and the running is amazing, but it's not if he were a little slow, I don't know if Murray would be a starter in the NFL, but he'd be I think Jackson is a lot farther from being, if he were only a passer, say he was as fast as Phillip Rivers tomorrow, Lamar Jackson I don't think is in the NFL. Murray might be. So that's the difference. I think he's in between.
Right.
If Mahomes had no mobility at all, he'd still be like Tom Brady, Drew Brees. You know what I mean? He'd be just, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Rodgers has mobility, but he'd still be like a star. Whereas these other guys, it's a huge part of their game. Not that that's going to go away, but you just have to regress. What if it's hard? What if things get tougher? But I think because Murray, the other thing is when Mahomes won his MVP, the Chiefs were scoring ridiculous amounts of points. When Jackson won his MVP, the Ravens had elite everything. The run blocking, everything was great. Murray's surroundings aren't that great. I mean, Hopkins has helped, but it's not like they have an elite offensive line. It's not like they have elite weapons.
True.
Murray, it could actually get better for Murray in some ways, not fantasy wise, but his environment could get better.
Lamar Jackson is ranked what for you now? 5, 6 among quarterbacks?
I got to do the rankings again this week. Maybe 8 or 9.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
can't put him.
And I think you're right on that. I think it is. I was trying to. I haven't looked at that. I had him at 5 or 6 this week in my rankings, but they play the Steelers on Thanksgiving night this week. He's not going to be in my top 10. I'll tell you that. I don't know where he's going to be, but he won't be in my top 10.
He's kind of matchup independent though, because it's all about kind of just him getting loose for a couple of big plays.
It is, but the big plays aren't happening. That's the point. The chunk plays aren't happening.
But they can happen unpredictably and quickly. It just takes a couple of, he just turns the corner, beats one safety, and it's 50-yard touchdown run. So he'll put up numbers in a hurry. But yeah, I don't see how you can put him ahead of Herbert. I don't think you could put him ahead of Josh Allen. There's just too many guys that I think I'm going to have ahead of him now.
Yeah, it's so funny to say, compare to, rewind 8 weeks or 9 weeks and say, I can't imagine having Lamar Jackson ahead of Justin Herbert. I mean, just all the, at the start of the season, he may not even play that much. He is really struggling to get the offense. Herbert's
actually, I already had lowered him. I'm looking now from last week. I was just looking where I already had him at 9.
Okay.
Overall. So it goes Murray, Wilson, Mahomes, Watson, Herbert, Allen, Brady, Rodgers, Jackson.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I'm going to leave that. I think I'm happy with that.
Yeah. I think I'm. It sounds about right. Who's right below Jackson?
Rodgers. Below him is Ryan. So he's actually ahead. He's ahead of Ryan.
Yeah, I see it.
I gotta redo some of these lower guys, but those top 10 I think are how I want it.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Packers Colts. Let's talk about that for a second. There, I like your line there. Close doesn't always equal good.
It was such a horrible game. It was late, so it was almost 1 a.m. my time, and I got to get up early these days to walk the dog in the morning. And 7 a.m. I'm outside taking him out, and so I was like, I just want to get to sleep. And this thing goes to overtime. There were 5 holding calls in a 2-minute span. It was just ridiculous. Some of them were real holds, but it was just so annoying. And then the Colts wouldn't just hand the ball off and run the clock. And then on top of that, Rivers not only threw it, but he almost threw a pick. It's like, what are you making that throw for? Just sit on it and run this clock down, and they make him use the timeout and get it down to 50 seconds left in the game or whatever. And then, give them the ball back with 50 seconds and no timeouts. Instead, they had 1:50 and 1 timeout. It was like, what's the point of this?
Yeah, the 3rd and 26 play, the incomplete pass. The Packers had 1 timeout still left at that point. It's 101. You make them use the timeout. Period. Right. And they threw on first down too after one of the holds. So it was 1st and 20, and they threw and had an incomplete pass. Twice they didn't make them use a timeout. It was just infuriating. And I was with you. I had the Colts, -2.5. I'm like, don't do that. You win the game by just running the clock here. Just take a knee, for God's sake.
Yeah, it was like the Super Bowl with the Falcons when they got sacked and got taken out of field goal range, which would have sealed it. It was just unconscionable, so obvious what to do, and they just lost sight of it somehow. And Rivers isn't the guy who's going to make a play. He's not going to roll out and he's not Pat Mahomes going to find somebody down the field to make a surprise first down. Just don't even mess with it.
Yeah. But meanwhile, the Packers too, for that matter, they settled for the field goal at the end of regulation. I say settled because twice they clocked it on first down. Just, you've got the helter-skelter going. It's working. Just keep rolling with it there. You're getting Devontae Adams against a linebacker across the middle, and instead, let's let them reset their defense, okay? And then the clock's running. They run it all the way down to 7 seconds before, and they had to settle for the field goal there because they had no more time. It's like, guys, you could win the game right here. It's over.
Right.
You don't want, the team just came back on you. You already blew a big lead. You want to play more? No, just win the damn game.
Yeah, it was horrible. The other thing that was so weird is the Colts had the ball the entire second half because the Packers had a couple fumbles. So the Colts' time possession, I didn't look at it, but it had to be 25 minutes in the second half. It was absurd. Why were the Colts doing the holding? Usually when you bang up a defense like that for half an hour straight, the defense is Swiss cheese. And yet the Colts are holding every play. Some of it was ticky-tack, obviously. Some of them were legit.
Answer. I think it was just ticky-tack.
Was the game fixed? Who calls 5 holding calls in 2 minutes? It was what is going on here?
I'm here to ref the best game of my life. People are here to see me.
It was this. I've never seen anything like it, that many holding calls.
It was crazy. It really was crazy. So, I don't know. There are obviously some good things in that one. Adams, had the limited practice all week, and he didn't go crazy, but he still was very productive.
Very annoying too. That dude that I was playing had Adams,
of course,
and of course that overtime. The fact that Colts couldn't chew up the clock. I think Adams got 2 catches for 20 extra yards.
Yeah.
On the subsequent drive, and I don't think he did anything in overtime. Thank God. I could have lost him. He could have got a touchdown, but just put these guys away. Get this guy off the field. Adams didn't do much in the second half. He did have a touchdown. It was just sort of normal game. It wasn't it was a good game, but it wasn't a monster game.
Yeah, that's right. Aaron Jones, you mentioned this too. He hasn't been the same since the quad injury. He paid the bills. He got the touchdown. He had a few catches, but he didn't go crazy. And granted, Colts run defense is pretty good. That's a big part of that.
But it's been 4 games or whatever, and he was doing what Dalvin Cook is doing now. Right. He was doing that early in the season.
Jacksonville was a good opponent last week, and he didn't go crazy against them either. So that was your sign. So yeah,
he looks fine, but he was owning the entire game. He was taking over the game fantasy wise and reality wise, and now he's just some guy who catches a few passes and gets 10 carries.
Yeah. The one good thing is he's still good around the goal line. He's still a really good goal line back. I have Josh Jacobs in a lot of places, and I've seen many times now where Jacobs has gotten stuffed around the goal line. Maybe that's the Raiders' offensive line some too, but some backs just find those little creases better than others. I feel like Jacobs isn't as good at that, and I think Jones is really good at that.
I think there's something to that, but sometimes it's also just these bunch formations at the goal line where there isn't a crease.
Yeah.
And so you're asking the guy in Barkley all the time, like, just be like, smash through 4 people. Well, it doesn't work.
Right.
And whenever it's like Derrick Henry, he can smash through people, but often he's like just walking, standing up right in through the end zone. And they know it's Derrick Henry. They know he's getting the ball, and yet he's got a big hole to run through. They're really well coached on the offensive line. Somehow, even missing Taylor Lewan, they're still Henry. I never see a guy just run full speed through like a giant hole and get 20 yards on random carries more than Henry.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But it's still infuriating. Like, there is the Raiders-Browns game where Jacobs got stuffed like 3 times that I remember. Although one of those, arguably, he got in. And you're right. Maybe that is just the Raiders aren't run blocking well there. They don't have the right formations. It happened again last night. Couple of times, so they got down to the 1 and he did not score. There was that, when they got to the 4th and inches that one time, and then there was the play before Witten had the penalty. And of course, Witten, vultures the touchdown too as the added insult. It couldn't have been Aguilar. It couldn't have been anybody useful. But no, it had to be Witten. But anyways, I saw those. The Browns, they got stuffed at the goal line. And last year that happened a lot of times too. If you remember, Chubb had some problems scoring a couple times. This time he didn't even get the carries at the goal line. So frustrating.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt really had like 13 yards on 11 carries, and Chubb just runs roughshod over the defense, and yet they're trying to smash it in with Hunt. He did score 1, but he got stuffed another time. Yeah. That was an annoying game. And Wentz it's all guts, no skill. He's Wentz, someone said this, I should have credited them, but I can't remember who it was. He has the triple crown. He has the most sacks, the most picks, and the most fumbles in the league, all 3.
Those are interrelated too. The sacks beget everything else too, I think, a little bit.
That's true, but I mean, to lead in all 3?
Yeah.
I mean, Danny Dimes last year led in fumbles, but he didn't lead in picks and sacks. It's like it's
but
hard
I bet
to
he was right
up
there. You were talking about how Dimes is the most pressured quarterback in the NFL at one point. He hasn't been the last couple games as much, but that it all leads to that.
It's connected, but still, yeah, you're right. It's correlated, but so is the triple crown: home runs, RBIs, batting average. They're all connected. RBIs and home runs are connected. Still, it's a triple crown, Jeff. You got to respect it.
I do. He's becoming David Carr, unfortunately.
I think trough Brett Favre is what he reminds me of. Just all guts, just like smashing, like running not very fast, but like taking off and
wanting to play hero ball. Yeah, I could see that.
Like head first in, over the first down marker into 2 linebackers and making it, he is tough. I mean, he has been, it's just all guts, no skill. And I think they got to turn to Jalen Hurts if it happens again. Because what are you doing? This guy's killing you. And it's like they're getting their receivers back. They're getting
got a division
back
to win, Chris. This is huge.
You never know. Chip in a chair, man. Like if they because I saw my brother's a Dolphins fan before this last week. He was like getting excited. He said, Giants Dolphins Super Bowl. I said, yeah, the Giants, they're not sniffing the Super Bowl, but they could win the division. They could get to the playoffs.
Yeah. Both the Eastern Division wins would be flawed. Quick note, I want to talk a little Dolphins here in a second. But first, sports bettors know that magic happens when you turn a hunch into action and apply the right amount of expertise. That's why BetMGM has teamed up with RotoWire to offer new BetMGM customers a free 6-month RotoWire subscription when they place their first bet. Register on the BetMGM app or the website, and once you make your first sports wager, you'll receive a season's length of RotoWire's unmatched sports insights. That's us. Find out why BetMGM is the king of the sportsbooks by signing up and placing your first bet today. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager, Colorado, Indiana, New Jersey, Nevada, Tennessee, and West Virginia only. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, Nevada, and 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey and West Virginia. In Tennessee, call or text the Red Line at 800-889-9789. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. Promotional offer is not available in Nevada. All right, Chris. So Tua got benched and they said it was performance. It wasn't injury, and the loss to Miami. And he was pretty bad. He was 11 for 20 for 83 yards. He got sacked 6 times. That pass rush got home a lot, and he looked flustered. Fitzmagic came in, led him to a drive, but then threw an end zone pick that was pretty bad. It was just okay. He was just a little bit better, but this was a surprising result. I had the Dolphins my best bet. I was 9-4, but I missed my best bet and badly.
Yeah, I was 7-6, lost my best bet. It was frustrating though. I was winning the Chargers game. I actually thought that the safety they took cost me, but you're right. It was 8.5, not 7.5. I was like, what? I was like, I got this when they're going to win by 8. Took a safety, but fortunately it didn't matter.
That would be such a tilting way to lose, especially if you get a parlay. Maybe, and probably some people. I can't imagine that number getting down to 7.5. But
no, I don't think anyone had it there. I just forgot that it was 8.5. Yeah, that was the Dolphins. I mean, Tua was bad. They couldn't move the ball. And I should have known. I mean, the Dolphins were smashing everybody and covering easily, but it's one of those things that they weren't good or consistent enough offensively to just go into Denver on the road in altitude against a defense that's not terrible and just be assured of moving the ball, and they just really couldn't at all. Now, Melvin Gordon. So I had Melvin Gordon in my lineup last week where he did nothing, and I had Ronald Jones on my bench when he went crazy. And then this week I had Ronald Jones active and Melvin Gordon on my bench when he scored 2 touchdowns. He almost scored 3 touchdowns, but he fumbled, which put the Dolphins, it was over if they even kicked the field goal.
Yep.
But Melvin Gordon fumbles, the Dolphins get the ball back down 7. I'm like, I'm going to cover the spread. We got a chance. And Fitzpatrick drives them down to the red zone and then throws the pick. But Fitzpatrick definitely gave him a better chance than Tua yesterday. Yeah. He moved the ball. It was credible. Devontae Parker's really good. He's a good receiver. He makes contested catches. He's tough.
He's a Jaguar, though. Not a Jacksonville Jaguar. He's like the car. He's really good, but he breaks down a lot. And he needs to be perfect.
He's played through some stuff this year. I don't know. That guy I watched that guy play. He's good.
Yeah.
He's physical and he's figured it out, I think, at the NFL level. But yeah, that was they just couldn't get anything going, and they're not that sound, metric wise per play stuff. But the Dolphins, they just couldn't lose. They were like at a charmed life, and they started off up 7-0 right away. It was like, Dolphins, easy money. And that was really it. It was really it for the rest of the game of any production for them.
By the way, that third near touchdown for Gordon, it was originally called a touchdown, but it wasn't. I know, but it was close. It was a horrific call. I mean, it was like, how do you? I mean, every once in a while you see like that, like, oh yeah, but they got it on replay, so we're fine. No, it's not fine because you're wasting time on that, and just in some cases you have to make challenges. It should be just get the call right. I saw there was a lot of disputed calls in the Northwestern Wisconsin game, and yeah, Northwestern got the benefit of most of them, so it was kind of funny. And so you can ask all the RotoWire guys about that. But there was also a spot that went Wisconsin's way that was like a yard off. It wasn't like just like a little bit off. Okay, you could plausibly say he got the first. No, it's like a yard and a half off. And it's like, how do you miss that? And that sort of stuff happens, but it's just terrible.
So it's funny. Like, I hate replay because I feel it's, well, 2 things. One, I just think it's just takes away from the game so much, and the benefit we get from getting it right is so much less than just like the delays and the endless lawyering and the fact that these catch rule comes into play. All these rules that don't exist. It's a fake rule, the catch rule. Oh, got to make a football move. That doesn't exist. That's not a rule. They added that so that they could have a basis for reviewing a replay. In real time, if there's no replay, is it a catch or not? I know a catch when I see it. That's the rule, right? Everyone knows what a catch is. You got to come down with 2 feet in bounds. We knew that. This whole lawyering stuff is new. But that Gordon call was the reason for replay. Like, there was a Vinny Testaverde touchdown where he was clearly a yard short.
Yeah, I remember that.
Replay. So the problem is that the technology exists on TV. And so you just couldn't, once you can like audit it on TV, you had to have a mechanism for changing it because people just wouldn't be able to believe the NFL. I wonder what this is similar to.
Yeah.
And so you have this, so they had to do it. They were forced to do it because people could see it. But I also think they called the Gordon thing a touchdown because those are automatically reviewed.
Yeah, I think that is a crutch. Yeah, I think so. And in some cases, like, oh, you let the play out. Okay, fine, I get it, because you don't want to have the error of commission. You want to have, let the play happen. But you get a lot of these, that's clearly not a fumble, or it's clearly not a catch. And you waste all this time, and like, come on. But you do that because the one time you might have missed it, and you blow the whistle, the play's dead. So I get it. But still.
Right. Well, that's the problem. So they call it a touchdown because it'll be reviewed. Otherwise, the coach has to risk a timeout, which could change the game. So it's the whole system is kind of screwed up. Just the incentives and I do think because they huddled about it and they called it a touchdown, knowing it would be looked at and they would get that right, because there wasn't like a crowd of people. They were going to get that right, so they figured, okay, we'll get this right. But it does really slow down the game. And
yeah, but all turnovers are also reviewed, so either way, it was going to get reviewed. But
that's right. That's true. They didn't need to do that. And also the presumption, once you call it a certain way, then that becomes the presumption.
Yeah, there's not enough clear and convincing evidence. Yeah,
exactly. So you do distort it. There's no ideal solution. I do think it was better. It's kind of like, it's like elections. It's like, well, it's not about the mechanics of it. It's about people being, okay, I believe in this. I trust this. Yeah. Like even it's in some ways like the belief is more important than the accuracy, because people need to believe. Like you need to be like, oh, we won the game. They won the game. They moved on in the playoffs. Like, does it really matter that the guy was an inch short in a championship game if nobody knows that he was an inch short? Say a guy gets into a pile. This is if the tree falls in the wood, forest, right, and no one hears it. It's like a guy gets a handoff. He crashes into the pile. It's too dense to understand. They call it a touchdown. They review it 20 times. It's impossible to really know. Nobody really knows. But you know what? It was a touchdown. And then we move on and nobody thinks about it because they did as good a job as they could, and we accept this team as the winner and blah, 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 and the NFL doesn't have a problem. But if you have a replay and it shows the guy's short and you know that he's short, and they have no way to overturn it, and so they're like, the NFL's a fraud, because the wrong team's ahead, like the Saints-Rams Super Bowl thing, it becomes, they can't have that because it undermines the faith in sort of like who the champion is and what's the point of rooting for a team then and all of this. So yeah, I think it's almost just like before replay, it's fine. They could do whatever they want. But after the advent of television replay, they got technology forced their hand. They have to do these reviews as much as it sucks.
Yeah, and the thing is, it illustrates the absurdity of it too. We have, yes, you have to do this, but then every play starts with the spot. Starts with where is the ball starting.
Yeah.
And you're going to have, you've got these sideline judges that aren't right there with the play a lot of times. They're running along too. Their eyes are jiggling. They're running around. They're slower than the play itself. They can't possibly keep up with the play. If it happens to finish in front of them, great. But a lot of times, like, oh, where did it get down exactly? Oh, it was right over there, right there. And it's, but we have to have this precise spot. And meanwhile, by the way, this exact 10-yard chain we're going to drag out and we're going to put it here. We're going to have this perfect spot.
The chain is some real 20th century shit. I mean, I don't know why.
It's insane. Unless you're going to it just shows the absurdity of the whole situation, though, because you can't have that degree of precision unless you have like a GPS in the ball and you have these special $100 footballs every time. And but we got to go up to the booth and see exactly where the spot is. It would just drag it down. The game would take 17 hours to do it right.
Well, they can make it cheap, that technology. I think, I was talking to Dalton about this on the Real Man Wood pod, and like, I don't. The problem with digital stuff is if it malfunctions, you're really screwed.
Oh yeah, of course. And,
because
you hack the football. You get all this.
They hacked the football. Yeah, they're like, no, we won the game. They hacked the football, dude. They hacked the football, obviously. Right? No, but seriously, no. This is like perfect because we really are in a moment in reality where what one's priors like really color like what happens. What actually happens doesn't matter. We just need to find like a shared belief system that we, look at the news. Like it used to be like the anchor, there's 3 networks and the anchors would tell the news and people believe the news. Now, was the news, reliable in 1965 or 1975? Probably not that reliable. There's propaganda and CIA, all the stuff then too, but it's just like, we just kind of agreed. We had a consensus, it built consensus. You watch the news, this is what happened. We all agreed on it, whether it was fake or real. It was like, okay, well, we agree on it. Right. But now that we're fragmented so much, and, teams, obviously sports has always been like that. Sports was ahead of its time because if I'm this fan and you're that fan, we see the same play and we're like, screw you, man. That was definitely, sport, that of course, biased sports fans all the time. So, but this is just, it's all coming to a head. And now we're saying, well, how do we make it precise? How do we put the electronics in the ball and all this stuff? But the thing is, the electronics in the ball would be way more precise and make way fewer errors. It's like self-driving cars. They don't crash as much as humans, but at least the human might have skid marks before the crash. It's the self-driving car, when it makes an error, could make an error of a magnitude that you can't even imagine.
Right.
And imagine if like the beeper goes off totally unpredictably and everyone stops. You could have a total disaster where a Super Bowl is just ruined because like the electronics malfunction or something. I don't know. To me, a human error is like a small error that you can look at replay and fix. A systemic sort of like, and I don't want to say hack because in football, well, there's bettors on it, but I think that's the less likely thing. But just some sort of error in a system-wide error, a glitch.
Yeah.
And so so there's no perfect solution, but this is illustrating the problems with the world that we're in right now.
That's right. All right, I think that's a good way to wrap it up, actually. Good closing point. We got our XM show coming up in a couple, 20 minutes, so we'll talk to you soon. And thanks for everybody for listening. Got Joe and Jake doing the Free Agent podcast tomorrow. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Thanks for listening to and watching our podcast. Have a great day.